So, over the years of exploring the solar system, um, my recent my recent exploration were of magnetic fields, and where does magnetic fields take place inside of magnetic fields, right? You know what I mean? So, there's a lot about gravity, and gravity, um, it's basically found all over the universe, you know. Now, there are different matter methods around gravitational centers, which are in different phases and or operational phases of making, and or attracting point like particles and their radiative phase. The more active cores of the planets and the strength of their magnetic field seems to come from specific chemical elements. Um, the most lively active nuclear half-lives due to its recombination and or morphing. The morphological phases of its of the surface and or how the morph takes place was recently observed previously corresponding to its nuclear phases and the chemical elements that can go through the fundamental phases and are the fundamental forces and the fundamental phases to sustain a magnetic field. And we would all know the states of matter would include solid, liquid, and gas, and plasma. Since plasma in its matter method can mostly transfer different types of electronic current and or another example of transferring through different solids or different phases of matter would be like from the sun. And the sun, releases a lot of gases and are point-like particles. And sometimes these point-like particles are, they are sufficient enough to be sustained about around the nuclear capacitor. For example, Mars is a nuclear capacitor. Jupiter is a nuclear capacitor. Um, so we'll get back to that. So let me make a memory. We're talking about capacitors and or the point like charge. It could have been a living planet way around when the dinosaurs were around and or before. You know what I mean? A different matter method before meteors potentially impacted and made it a little more complex, and or it got its other moon from the meteor belt. Anyways, we'll get back to Mars shortly. I was as I was exploring the solar system, I was noticing the different patterns of storms. Obviously, I focus on the intergalactic center a lot with my dish sometimes. Previously in the past, um, now, um, whenever we would see the current and or the manifolds, the spherical manifolds obviously shifting, the manifolds inside would sufficiently make an more accelerated morph due to the nuclear phases, and it's more concentrated as the morph, in different spattles, can be seen when it's doing like things in the solar system and our deep space, like into nearby star distances. You know what I mean? Into the universe. So the different morphological phases of nuclear would be using the nuclear energy and or the nuclear capacitor to morph into the different spherical nuclear frequencies and our frequency like bendings of magnetic energy for the star to take its magnetic shape around its radius, and how fast it's the frequencies of light, it's be seen like electrostatic all around the sphere. It's the nuclear frequency and or the foundation frequency spherically that sustains the speed of light. Mostly the north and the south poles are a little cooler, so it's a little vacuumed like frequency as it's nuclearly sustaining the sphere. You would see it being more darker because it's cooling some of the nuclear phases for it to use more of the nuclear energy to not be to not lose control and or and be unstable to nuclear, having lots of nuclear strength. So it's never any nuclear instabilities. although there's a lot of problems with magnetic fields, and you know they're being completely linear to each other. You know what I mean? So basically, I mean, there's a lot of things that I wanted to talk about. You see the storms or the surface magnet, the magnitudes happening on this on the surface. Sometimes a lot of things can. I mean, there's so many different nuclear phases I observed. Um, you know that it's just complex. It's like the introduction could take forever to talk about because there's so many different nuclear phases. Like, for example, you see the storms on Earth, right? You see the storms in different sectors around the sphere. So the storms, there's highly charged, locations around the sphere, and how matter and how it bends the magnetic field, and how it's point like attractions, and whenever it's spiraling, and how they shift their positions around the sphere as it's spiraling. But it's more of a a circle. Like, hold on one second. It was more of a planet was moving, but, so it's like spiraling. You know, as the storm goes for days, it's at that same position. Sometimes they transfer in different positions and stuff. You know what I mean? But the spherical expression and how the magnetic field bends things along with the different traveling frequencies, um, that could potentially make different stream-like behaviors due to the spin. You know what I mean? So the stream-like behaviors could like even make wormholes, and you know what I mean. It's like an electronic configuration for tunnels to happen. There are many different spots. I mean, it's a big planet, and the magnetic field around the planet is obviously moving at different frequencies, along with the magnetic field outside. The magnetic field outside has so many different frequencies. Like its nuclear capacitor is bigger than the whole freaking solar, bigger than all the planets in the solar system. So it's like so many nuclear ion channels that are visibly sustained through various different durations. You would know that it's burning through the wave source is burning through at that specific point in time, at that depending on where we are around any sector of the solar system in any season, that specific identified frequency or unique frequency like no other would never be there. You know what I mean? It would never be. It's a unique frequency. So back to the capacitors. Obviously we see the size of Earth, and we see its capacitor of the charge can be in various different charges. The electrostatic produce can go billions. It can make billions of different type of point like you know frequencies for the electrostatic to make different nuclear phases and our reactions corresponding to other planets and their distances, you know, and or like for example Neptune and its distance, the specific spin current and or the atmospheric electrostatic, it's a smart solar system because the solar system has smart electronic systems around the source, the electronic current source, because it's like it's a circuit system here. You know what I mean? If you understand circuit systems, you understand how dark matter and dark energy work, because it only works off the circuit system here. You know what I mean? So, basically, there are storms in different sectors of of different sectors of the solar system, right? There are storms here, here. Just all everywhere. You know what I mean? So you see the magnet and this magnetic-like behavior, and or different quantum-like tunnels. Well, the different frequencies could make here, along with the attractions of the frequencies being propagated, spinning at that specific nuclear distance, and or that specific magnetic current where it could spread out depending on the different frequencies emitted from the storms going on in different planets. Like it could be storms on multiple planets here for for the magnet to be bent, along with its frequency of waves like of traveling. It could just bend in this like large way. Like the frequency can bend in so many different ways using its planet. You would see the sun's magnetic field being like this really amazing, like how the planets bend like the currents sometimes, because they will all carry a charge. Only the planets that carry the charges, right? Now, now there's different types of like particle like interactions here because it's mostly a particle freeway. Sometimes it has to be specific wavelengths going on other planets, and specific wavelengths going on here for this particle freeway, which only happens in between different types of space like atomic times. These atomic times are mostly activated from the source, so it's like a its own axis. Like, Earth has its own core. You know what I mean? It's a gravitational charge system that carries, and the people, usually they carry a lot of, the space drag from the planet just going to different sectors of the solar system. So the drag, it's always there because it's a gravitational system, and everything that's carried never lets anything go. So a lot of things are carried on the planet because the gravitational charges made the ripples which affect different types of things here. So, but everything in space is always new. Like this is a nuclear system that it morphs, and when it morphs, it travels, and it's also moving around the universe in different sectors, of the universe, carrying a mass, and there are different you know, different types of charges around, around space and the planets. It's like a lot of particle freeways going on here, and the sun's magnetic field, and the sun's magnetic field is always storing different types of things inside of the spin current, which is the electrostatic produced inside of the planets here. Although, so since Earth has, a billion range of different formations of electrostatic, the patterns that are visibly seen on the sphere, it could be in many different ways. It's like a charge. You would see the charge of the spin. Let's say you'd see like, a different electric current and how the storms bend the jet stream and their charges. It's a spin like effect. You see this the sphere, the spherical impact, and a different, depending on the face facing the sun and the face of the charge being carried, if it's through the night and or through the day. It's this magnetic field here. So the particle freeway is happening nonstop. Now sometimes, different type of particle interactions can go on with, transmitting particles back and forth, and they go at the speed of light because the matter method, you can only go through plasma, and or through, if there's half-life sustained, the matter method sustains more than just like, it sustains like a stream, like this magnetic stream that was linked in between, constant linking and or unlinking. If like let's say for example a wormhole collapses, then it would be like the weakness of the strength. If it was more strengthier, then it would be the strength of, it was able to withstand nuclear distances. Sometimes there are different sectors like this. This is like different sectors of a sphere. It, sometimes things have to, go through, different solar storms. So it's many complexities that happen with a lot of the transmission. A lot of the things that go on out there, but sufficiently it works. You know what I mean? I mean, now that Earth is at like a different axis, the spin chart, or the spin current is kind of is noticeably impacted by carbon and by various other things that we can make solutions for. But a basics of like the particle and our matter method of dark matter here was only through electrical currents, which are visibly seen on the surface of spinning planets that carries a charge. For these different types of matter, like behavior should take place inside of where the plasma lines are transmitting, you know, gravitational waves. So we see the magnetic field and we see the behaviors of magnetic fields. Now we would see Mars magnetic field, and Mars magnetic field is more complex because it lacks the chemical elements on the surface to maintain any transmission through plasma, and its core hasn't really been reacting much. If it has been, if it was some sort of, of medium like wave there with a particle attraction, the core would have sustained some sort of nuclear charge, which will constantly make surface activity from the charge being um, you know, producing constant electric or nuclear phases, which will constantly become apparently volcanic. The volcanic phases show the strength of the electromagnetic force. Now, the particles that are attracting and are transmitting different times, there are other complexities. Um, but it carries a lot of goods and elements that we could use at any atomic time. You know what I mean? So we learned about the four fundamental forces, which is gravity, the electromagnetic force, nuclear strong and nuclear weak phases, and or nuclear strong and nuclear weak. So we would see all the gravity, all the planets, and we would know that where the electromagnetic force is visibly making like spin currents, either spherically, the it would either make them spherically, where it would be a specific pattern, and or it would make them, sector like, where it's like a spiral patterns of currents being, this is a universal method here. It's a universal, method of all of the planets producing electrostatic, um, and it's transitioning phases through through it's transitioning phases through when it's transiting around different sectors along with different strengths of other cores through different seasons. um it tends to, I mean, it's like noticeable dark matter uh, natures. Like the dark matter natures are always in between gaps of cores. um so in between its method, it takes like it's like a storm distance, you know what I mean? And the magnetic field has to work for those fields. So it takes a lot of time. Sometimes it's really pretty quick, but it's only the transmission through solar phases, which has all of the solar, like everything that's the nuclear strength inside of the solar system. Um, that would be the nature of matter phases outside. It's a smart networking system here. Star Beauty has the whole gang. What's up? Well, the spin current is the current density. Okay. Sometimes it can be more compact of, or it can be more longer waves or more intense waves, in different sectors of the sun. It travels, like for example, when I was saying, the sun, it produces a specific frequency, which is the speed of light, which is spherically seen. Okay. Although its magnetic flux, again, can be more increase of nuclear energy, propagating faster than the speed of light, since I mean, it's still visibly propagating. It's not really propagating faster than well, it's propagating it really fast. What I mean? Magnetic flux, nuclear capacitors compacting the wavelength, and or making waves, as in that sector of it travel. So it's magnetic like, although it's not like, it's not like just line like, it's more like, you know, sector, and however the solar system bends the magnetic fields. I mean, it's already bending and it's going out like spherically. You know what I mean? I mean, it's already magnetic, and the solar system's already magnetic. I mean, but it could be faced towards the planet, or it could be any sector of the sphere. Magnetic currents and or charges could, like, it's like magic. It just bends. You'd think it's like going one way, but it gets all bendy, and like particles and things get attracted. It's like really crazy because like it's really complex, because magnetic fields, we would see them, different examples of, or we would see them as just being out, but currents and our charges are everywhere, and magnets just react, in all these different ways. So, how I experience observing the solar system with the satellite dish was like it's like it's more complex, and planets keep morphing, and magnetic fields morph too, and they change due to charges, and it's really insane. You know what I mean? I love it. Like it's like wow. You get whenever you get particles. Now particles, there are so many different particles, and then like magnetic fields, and or how the charge of different magnetic fields can like be sustained by these, you know, and sustained by the point like particles, or the point like particles be sustained by the magnets. It comes, it's like hand in hand, because it's both sides of the fundamental forces here. um, so I mean, a lot of unique things going on in the solar system. Like don't forget, celestial things, and the gravity, the microgravity is going to be constant, and the different capacitors around the intergalactic center being in their fields, would give us more another matter method hand, and or dark matter and or dark energy method, to sustain life. Because these are strong gravitational systems. Spherically, that would be a unified field, which on Earth, the unified field carries all of the species. Unification of fields, transmission would be through the electromagnetic force, and that's the whole frequency of light. So it's unified to unified transmissions of cores here. So we would everything that I would do would spherically impact Earth, because I would always be outside with what's unified inside as a species, and all the other species which are unified as a species in their class, um, but to interact with other spheres, to sustain, you know, my own nuclear chemistry and the unified magnetic field, to explore cores. The magnetic, I'm sustained, and like I'm happy with, you know, the celestial alignments that I've made, over, individually freely, and I've got my magnetic current, from the magnetic density being such a nuclear reactor, it's the celestial alignments that my nuclear strength, I experienced were coordinates from the different alignments, along with the alignments from the celestial, so I'm pretty nuclear strong with my foundation of, um, why, my the why I'm how I am, and everything that made me who I was. Um, the strength in the particle like translations of the nuclear strength, for the collective current, like, you know um, phases, which we can only go through, you know living through the nuclear phases of, what I mean, to make, go through nuclear. So I'm pretty strong, because the core of the Earth kind of, you know the core of the planet. The core took me to, made all my individual independent magnetic moments and magnetic fields. The magnetic fields, you know, I that's how I get the particle like interaction going on here from nuclear strength and different seasons, and our different celestial like currents happening. I mean, the stuff that's happening in deeper space is amazing too. So, so I'm never gonna, I can't really get out of the magnet was was my life, my individual life. You know what I mean? The current, in it's the coordination grew in my two inside, like neuron like of currents of specific wavelengths of traveling magnetic, you know, molecular frequencies. You know what I mean? So since this universal method, this linear mechanical, um, gravitational sustaining method would only be linear mechanical. The dark matter method in between cores would be the mechanical translation of what I produce. The constant collection was whenever the different satellite systems were around the different cores being active. The clouds were still were still in the atmosphere of Earth through different transmission phases as it was tunneled in between satellite position and space. So, the nuclear stabilities could only become from into the unified field. Well, I mean, they're all over the universe. Like, for example, before I was born, there was satellite dishes, and making different wavelengths in space, so everything was basically outside, way before I was born. The attraction to Earth was apparent, um, because I'm on the ground and living, point like particle phases and our magnitude. Um, Thus, we would see that all all walks of life, they have we made it to this magnetic density in different current phases, and the different current phases with different charges of plasma. You know, you would see why the different transmissions through different variations of hydrogen and hydrogen lights of nuclear phases. That in different sectors of a sphere, which they all have to orbit, where activation energy could only charge, at different positions, different atomic times. You know what I mean? Because it would be what's carrying charges around different positions or atomic times or different distances around the sun. Activation energies can only work in different whenever you know different different planets activate different medium waves or propagate different medium waves. It's like it's this large tunneling system. So and ever since I've been here, it's just been like technology, linear mechanical, um, introductions to the ground and space. So since linear mechanical in between molecular data, um, it's like the expanse. I'm only on the expanse of quantum tunneling, independently living my own life, and with my company, we would only go through the tunneling and or quantum tunnel behaviors of sustaining nuclear cores. Um, the strength and the dark matter method would be what makes my company sustains its own linear mechanical electrostatic. The electrostatic I provide would be of different morphological my morphological spheres. They're sustaining charges, and they move around the charges and or the different planets and or in space in different ways to sustain charges, and their charge like interaction in space would be in between, be particle like, and or they're independent systems themselves. So we'll talk about it someday, but we'll get more into the electromagnetic force and particles and magnetic fields and how magnetic fields are created inside of magnetic fields, if you want to talk about that too, and different things, and how we can do things on other planets, even on Mars, even when it's lacking, a current density, and it either has a weak core or no core. I mean, or a probability, a problem chord or probability. It still needs some sort of a lot of chemicals to work, um, to in or transmit things in our wavelengths, because it can only transmit through the phases of matter, um, or wavelengths can only go through medium waves and or the medium like ranges of wavelength and or their nuclear wavelengths, and how these frequencies vibrate only in this specific nuclear range, in our molecular range, in our molecular channel. How different, for example, it could be a storm and a frequency can make a vibration. The vibration would shake the ground and it will affect and impact everyone on the ground, right? In that sector of a sphere, because in that sector of a sphere, the wavelength it transmitted through everyone on the ground. Everyone intended to be a charge, a capacitor was either reacted by the wavelength or not reacted, and it like the X-verse battle. is what carried the charges that were affected. Is where the molecular frequencies started to make, you know, link up into a different, a different shape, and it ended up being like a morph, a morph frequency where it ends up being new. So going through the storms here on Earth, you know what I mean? It's like an ion range due to the charge, and the charge and the energy was released into the magnetic field, and the magnetic field made a nuclear range of nuclear reactions, and on the molecular frequency scale, which was vibrating the ground. No, we can talk about more of this later. I mean, I could talk about a lot. I could talk about meteorology, or I could talk about planets, and but we can get to it someday. Obviously, if you let space, and the core work, obviously things with the molecular channels can sufficiently work. If you don't let them work, it ends up not being the right, you know, frequency, you know, for things to make the right, or magnetic density and our magnetic current. These freely can only reach, can only electronically configure it with different storms, around the intergalactic center, or the sun. Um, those frequencies will harmonically make the celestial alignments, gravitationally. So, if you let gravity work, because there's gravity all around the sphere, dark matter or dark energy will work, and things can work smoothly. Stop interfering with things. I'm not with any communities or anything. So, you know what I mean? I'm just independently, my own individual person, independently, um, just with my company and just outside in space. So, making different nuclear tools on the ground. And our nuclear tools I'll make would be through different transmissions of plasma, making either plasma like fusions and or emitting different wavelengths to the artificial magnetic field that will propagate a specific magnetic density. And the magnetic density would be what's covering either half the country and or part of the full country, and it would make this molecular channel for a specific point like charges that I would make made in different sectors of the solar system, which would be the atomic time, using my satellite dish, maybe some lasers, and or different systems around the different planet. It would be the current density and how of my magnetic tools, and how my tunneling would sustain that specific current density. It would be linear mechanical, but my linear mechanical electrostatics would be what linear mechanical to the species, and not species but to the planet, and our species, which is unified to the species. Um, I would mostly be like a carrier, providing that linear mechanical electrostatic at that specific wavelength. That would be my electrostatic. I didn't say how my electrostatics produce. My linear mechanical electrostatic would just be a strong carrier, which is non-negative because it's only positive particle attractions. The positive particles in our magnetic like wavelengths would be from conductions, conducting charges, charge like reactions, and it would be like it would in tune like different frequencies through the different emissions of different nuclear frequencies, um, being bounced back in our emitter receptor, making what through its magnetic field. Its magnetic field will have so many different frequencies. It would have to go through the different magnetic densities of every frequency in its current. So let's say, for example, I'm oscillating in almost like 2,000 different patterns here. Let's see where the pattern is like, freaking a spin, like it's a frequency of like 6 different frequencies, and it's spinning at like 2,000 miles per hour. Then I have another frequency like of different emission, different frequencies combined, and they're all oscillating and are spinning at like 200 miles per hour, and then I have my my laser tools, and they're also spinning with along with the propagating wavelengths that are being going traveling with the light. You know what I mean? Well, I mean, we could talk about it. We talk about it someday, because I'm about it. So